Welcome to the Braver Angels podcast, a new way of talking politics. I'm your host, Mónica Guzmán. Hey everyone, it's Mónica Guzmán. Welcome to the Braver Angels podcast. I'm really excited about this episode. It's with Daniel Seddiqui. He's not a scholar on depolarization. He isn't, here to argue one or another side of a tough issue. What we talked with him about was his extremely unique experiences over the last 14 years. He has gone completely out of his way to travel the country, all of our states, the 65 most populous cities. He did these 4 extreme kinds of trips to just expose himself and see what this country is about. And I got to tell you, I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. It's as much, a reflection on the state of our country and what it's like to have this distrust and fear, how we could overcome it with our own experiences, with potentially, trusting people who feel very different from us, even cultures and places in this country that feel different from us. But it's also itself just a trip. Daniel shares a lot of stories from his experiences with completely different people that really, if you watch on video, you'll see my mouth hang open a couple of times. So I really hope you enjoy this episode, and thank you for being here with us. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We're not talking so much about politics in America, but we are talking a lot about America with maybe one of the most uniquely experienced people on the subject, Daniel Seddiqui. Maybe you've traveled around the country. Maybe you've been to 5 states, 10, 30. Daniel has been to all 50 states over and over again for some pretty incredible reasons. In 2008, he worked 50 jobs in 50 states. In a coal mine in West Virginia, a corn farmer in Nebraska. He was a wedding coordinator in Nevada. He was on the Border Patrol in Arizona. Just last month, Daniel completed a year-long trek to America's 65 most populous cities to craft mementos from each one that represents its people's passions and culture. In between, he completed 2 other hop across the country projects I'm sure we'll talk about. Now, at Braver Angels, we talk a lot about the division, the distrust, the fear that we all feel sometimes is gripping our country, how separate our country feels, how it can seem like different pieces, different places even are pulling away from each other, opposing each other, fearing each other. Mm-hmm. And here's Daniel, who's gone out of his way, and I mean way out of his way, to stitch America together for himself. Why? Why did he do this? What did he learn? What's it been like to do these kinds of experiences in some of the most divisive 14 years in our country's history? What has he seen that can help the rest of us see ourselves better? These are the questions we're bringing to my guest today. Daniel, welcome to the Braver Angels podcast. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm excited to dig in.
Yeah, Monica, it's been a while since I've seen you in person, over a decade. I think it was 2011 when I saw you at the in Seattle.
That's
at
right.
The University Square, or in what village, whatever it's called. So
That's right. That's where we met when you were had you just finished 50 jobs in 50 states?
Yep.
I think
and
so.
I was like on my little book tour, fancy stuff. And, it's nice to see you doing your thing, 12, 13, 14 years later. And I'm doing my thing. I never thought I would still be traveling the way I am.
Oh yeah. And
I actually just finished the journey you mentioned yesterday in the Bay Area. So pardon me if I don't articulate myself as best I can, because I have a lot of things on my mind that I've experienced. So my my brain is like a file cabinet that I have to reflect back to, different circumstances and situations and the people that I've met. And it's just, I don't know if anyone's ever experienced this much variety of life like I have. It's been pretty wild.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it seems to be bucking a trend, right? Because we're talking
Mhm,
about how we're surrounded by people who are like us. When
mhm,
things feel more anxious in the world, we
mhm.
like to be in places that are familiar. And
Yeah,
so this kind of variety is surprising in on a number of
yeah,
levels. So let's start. I guess let's start at the beginning. Way
sure.
close to when I first met you. The 50 jobs in 50 states. Um, Really got you made you a bit of a name. You were in
Mhm,
local news and national news all over back
yeah,
then. So tell us how that happened, how this started for you. You graduated from college, you applied
right.
to a bunch of jobs, and
Yeah.
then what?
Well, actually, to reflect back on it, my journey really started as a 6-year-old kid, staring at maps of the US and the world, collecting, not only sports cards, but cards of countries, and just like memorizing the statistics on the back of religions, populations, industries, like all that started to fester as a very young child. You'd say it would be kind of a weird hobby, but it panned out to be something great that I never really foresaw the way it has. But after I graduated from college, that's when I struggled to land a job, and so I was just trying to figure, my path out. I thought I did all the right steps in order to find a fulfilling career path, but a lot of my focus was on athletics in college and just earning good grades, but you don't really kind of see what all this means until it's like too late. So
Yeah.
I'm graduating without any connections, without any real world experience, just in the classroom and just in sports and just a really basic knowledge of my degree. So I didn't really know how I was going to apply it. So when I went on these job interviews, sure, I went on second and third round interviews, but never was my fate to get a job. And so 120 rounds of job interviews later, I still found myself looking for work, and ended up like, just doing really odd jobs, even volunteering, and having to actually sleep in a rental car. And that was my life when I was 26 years old, 25 to 26 years old, just totally lost.
Mhm.
And then I just thought about, you know, how curiosity led me to all sorts of directions in my life. And that started as a kid staring at maps. And then it started as being a long distance runner where you don't like to backtrack when you go on a long distance run. You like to find another way back because you want to see another, a site, or, just keep things interesting on a 20-mile run. So and so curiosity was always that, like, I want to see what's around that corner, and it just kept going and going and going. So curiosity has been a blessing and a curse at the same time, because I say curse because I wish I didn't have to do all this. It's a lot of work. I've put myself in a lot of you know I guess you can say danger. Just being on the roads, driving through the worst weathers, being in the most interesting landscapes. So um, yeah, that's so the 50 jobs kind of was created because it was a curiosity of America and the world around me that I didn't really know existed, and besides on the map. And now I was trying to make these pinpoints on the map a reality and really come to life. And that's how I started it. I said my mission was to understand America and respect our differences. And I understood that as a very young kid, that we are different because we have such a big world, such a large country, from Maine to Arizona. You can't expect people to be similar because you grow up differently in terms of your values, your circumstances. Your immediate environment really shapes who you become. And so as I started to develop this concept, 50 jobs in 50 states, I thought, why don't I choose jobs that each state is known for? So the dairy land of Wisconsin. I worked at a cheese factory, coal mines in Appalachia, West Virginia, amusement parks in Orlando, Florida, to Border Patrol in Arizona. So I never repeated a job or an industry. So that was the challenge, is just kind of crafting that identity of each state. And that journey took about 50 weeks. I did one job per state, and in many states that was enough. the, but and then after I completed that, then it just led to new journeys, because as you know, curiosity is inspiring. Like
It's
you
pretty.
really get to learn and challenge yourself through it, and I can't imagine living life without it.
Yeah. So there's so much to dig into there. I know
Mhm.
that your tagline is living the map. So I'm
Yeah,
seeing you as a 7-year-old memorizing these cards about
yeah,
places. Wow.
yeah. I s-
And then
mm,
just saying I want to go live it. But one of my favorite questions to ask anyone who's done something unusual is why you? Meaning, why did you end up doing this and not someone
mhm.
else? It's not a lot of
Yeah,
college graduates who have a hard time finding jobs who go, I know, I'm
yeah,
going to just hop around the country. You talked about the curiosity that
yeah,
seemed embedded in you as a kid, but where did that actually? Why? Where did that come
yeah.
from for you? Why
Well,
is?
I think if you believe in God or universe, I think it prepared me for it, because being a long distance runner, you are very goal oriented. You're a little bit on the wacky side. Um, you have endurance. Like, the amount of energy that I have is unexplainable, really. I mean, I'm able to last for a whole year on 2 to 3 hours of sleep.
Wait, what?
So, and huh?
Really?
Yeah, I actually did that when I was 26, and I actually am 39, and I did the same thing.
Oh my
I
goodness!
was I was yeah, on this recent trip, I was sleeping maybe 3 hours a night average. Even if I'm in a really nice hotel, it doesn't matter, because I'm really anxious about the next day and eager to learn, and kind of,
Wow.
not sure what I'm gonna. It's just that element of surprise that I really just thrived on. And I never drank coffee in my life, never needed caffeine. Completely natural as can be. I don't drink soda, nothing.
Oh my.
So it's yeah, it's just a real natural high, which long distance runners are used to. When you go to a certain point, and the curiosity, I don't know if I was born with it or it's something I grew up with, and my parents fed me. They gave me atlases, encyclopedias, globes. I hung out at the library. They just kind of supported me to be interested in something.
Mhm.
And yeah, when I say I was prepared for it, is because I think desperation was the reason why I hit the road, because I was desperate for an opportunity. I was living in a rental car, and that was a sign. And there was many signs that I was getting rejected all the time, and I felt the whole world was against me, and I just needed to kind of burst out of this bubble. And that's why I call it living the map. And that term came naturally to me. It really meant that I was going to not only live the map that I was seeing as a kid, but also it meant, not limiting myself to the bubble I was in,
Mhm.
my degree, my lack of connections. So that's what living the map means. It's really opening up your world. And yeah, curiosity, it is the point of movement. That's what propelled motion, I guess, forward. Yeah, without it I wouldn't have taken one step. So
Yeah. So there's all this energy and all this curiosity and the motivation, and it didn't stop for 14 years. That's pretty remarkable. So tell
yeah.
us, you mentioned that sometimes you put yourself in danger. So I want to kind of reflect on the moment, in America right now. There,
Mhm.
there is quite a bit of fear and distrust circulating, and lots of studies showing us that we do sort ourselves to be close to people who are with us, and yet
Mhm.
you spent all this time with strangers, just meeting people over and
Mhm.
over
Mhm.
and over
Yeah.
again. So, yeah, I mean, what was with that lens? What moments come up for you from your many experiences out in America, where
Sure.
you remember meeting strangers and that being challenging, where you remember being somewhere completely unfamiliar and that being challenging? Tell us about that.
Well, that's a great question. I think a really important one. I actually would say it became second nature after the first couple months. Um, to be, because I realized most of my adulthood was around strangers. I would say since I'm 25 years old, it's been with strangers because I'm always on the move. I'm doing new jobs, and this is my ninth state that I've lived permanently in now in Oregon. And my wife was a stranger at one time too. So, and and we got married
Well
after
said.
3 months. We got married after 3 months of knowing each other. Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, it became second nature. That's what I mean. Like first, when I left California, my home state in 2008, oh boy, I was scared out of my mind. I was sleeping in my car in Reno on my way to Salt Lake City, and I'm thinking, and I was up all night, in a sleeping bag in the back of the Jeep, and I see cars passing by me, and thinking that it's illegal to sleep in your car. I wasn't sure, so I would pop up every time to make sure it wasn't a policeman. So that was like my first time really going out of my element, and I was thinking, I hope this is all worth it. That was my first night I ever hit on the road, and then I was with strangers the rest of the way, and I would have to say I would not have been able to accomplish my goal or any of my goals if it weren't for the strangers. And my first time actually that I really remember that was life changing was in South Dakota. I was at I was at a rodeo, and I was a rodeo announcer in rural South Dakota. So foreign to me, it's all real cowboys, not dress up, as authentic as can be. I'm in a town of 142 people in Ulrichs, and this gentleman comes up to me. He said, "Where are you staying while you're in South Dakota?" And I was thinking, well, not with you. You're very scary looking. And but that's how we label people, and that's the problem that we are all guilty of. We start stereotyping, we label people. I was a part of that problem that we're facing today. And I just said, you know what? I'm in a vulnerable position in my life. I don't want to sleep in the back of my car again. And I just trusted this man. And he led me home. He said, just follow me. We went like, 15 miles down the road, and we were going in real country. And I was like, oh my God. And I thought, oh, he's going to bring me to a trailer and then kill me or something. All these things go through your mind, when you're totally
Yeah,
out of your comfort zone. And
sure.
then he ended up living in this enormous ranch with beautiful horses and cows. It was spectacular. And then I met his family, and they took me in for an entire week. And they actually like it felt like they treated me like their own, like a new son that they just adopted, and it was unbelievable. And I'm still in touch with them today. 14, every time I go to South Dakota, I go and see them. We're connected on the Facebook, and I'm really good friends with one of the daughters. And it just that's one point that was like, you think something bad is going to happen, and then something remarkable happens. And it was the connection with another stranger that at one time is now one of my closest families.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You chose to trust. You had instincts going,
Sure. I mean, everybody, and that's why I think that why we stereotype is a defense mechanism. I think when we look at somebody, we're like, it gives us a pause of who that person might be. And I feel like, yeah, we all do it, and that's part of our society, and it's not right or wrong, but because sometimes you could be right. You're like, yeah, I should stay away from that person.
yeah.
Like for instance, I went to Appalachia, and I witnessed it. I already went, like, I felt this was on a different journey.
Mhm.
And I felt like, oh my God, I am way out of my element. I feel so unsafe, more than you would feel like in an inner city that has gang violence. I felt so unsafe because just I had an eerie feeling about it. And then like 10 minutes later, I witnessed an axe fight of hillbillies, swinging axes at each other at a gas station. And it was a big brawl with all these trucks and about 30 people. And it was just, I was like, I got to get out of here because I was about to witness a murder. And so I called up the police, and it went straight to a sheriff's phone number or a cell phone. He didn't answer, and then I drove to the next town and I saw the police in like a fast food joint, and I said, you know what, I witnessed this fight. He said, oh, don't worry about it, that's that town, that's how that town is, because it's like drugs and just ruthlessness there. So
Wow.
and that's America, that's America that most people don't know. So yes, there's good and bad. That was obviously the bad, but in a community like that, you have
Wow.
very polarized people. You have super religious who want to try to heal the community, and then you have people like that who just want to destroy it and
Oh my God.
are hooked on drugs
So stop for a second and talk a little bit about that trip. So I mentioned in the introduction to this
yeah.
conversation that you did 4 total trips. You started
Yeah,
with
that one was actually called Going the Extra Mile, if you could see that. And I show this because the tagline says, one man's curiosity through America leads to compassion. So what inspired that was, during the time of division, is that at least I want to go out of my comfort zone as a subject to thread through, the most challenging environments, whether it's the Mississippi Delta, Appalachia, Indian Reservation, South Chicago, or even Central America, where you have the highest undocumented or illegal immigration in the country. And so I wanted to go and live with these communities for a month. And I actually lived in that community in Appalachia for a month, and I saw the good and I saw the bad. And why I wanted to do that is because I felt like I didn't see every community on the 50 jobs endeavor. And so I wanted to see these very isolated pockets of the country that are suffering from a social issue affected probably by high unemployment or underemployment. And most of these, communities, you would say, are hopeless because no jobs, no promises, no outlets, because people really need a purpose in life. And that's one thing I have learned across the country. The people who are super passionate and excited about life have a purpose behind, whether their job, their craft, their family, their home, whatever. But if you don't have that, then you get into a really bad cycle.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
in Appalachia, you were there for a month. You talked to us about the scary thing that you witnessed.
Mhm.
What's something that surprised you that left you kind of hopeful? What's something
Well,
that
you see that, you see the community was, that particular community was just fighting. To hold their community together. You have people who are,
say more about that? Yeah. What do you mean?
yeah, probably one of the most religious communities I've ever seen, where church is a part of their life. It's almost a everyday part of their life. And, I go into people's homes and you see crosses and pictures and portraits of Jesus all over the walls. And you could just tell that they are in a fight with their own community, that's their purpose, is to try to save what they can.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was hard. I kind of look at it this way: if you drop human beings into a middle of the forest, you're going to have people who believe in a higher power and want to do good, and then you're going to have other people who like to take advantage and tear down, so I think that's just natural human behavior. It's kind
Wow.
of because Appalachia is such an isolated uh, area, and intentionally, actually, because they left from, if I know the history, they left Scotland and to Northern Ireland, and from Northern Ireland they came to America to try to find the most isolated place, which happened to be West Virginia and Eastern Kentucky. And they don't want to be governed. They don't want influence of outsiders. They actually could have a very touristy, they could have tourism in their communities because it's such a beautiful place. A lot of, they have a natural bridge, they got just beautiful, and they don't want tourism there. They just don't want any outside influence. And that's what I mean. If you just drop people into a community, you're going to get a polarized place like that. So,
Well, hearing you talk also makes me reflect on with media, right, in America.
mm,
It can often feel like we're supposed to all have the same conversation. We're supposed to all have the same culture. we're supposed to all have the same kind of
That's good. Yeah. Yeah,
vision
you're right.
about everything.
Yeah.
But and there's a lot of parts of America that are very different, are very unique, but that we don't
Mm,
see, and we don't get to appreciate. And by we, I mean anyone who is outside of those communities. We don't get to sort of appreciate that the diversity that exists in America in terms of,
mm,
not just individuals themselves, but the cultures we build together in all these
yeah,
different ways across our country.
sure.
It's
And
staggering when you think about it, but so few of us get to experience it. And
sure.
you
Yeah.
actually see it,
Yeah,
right?
it's pretty
Your
wild.
interpretation is your interpretation. Anyone else who would have
Yeah,
done your journey would have had different conclusions. You had
sure.
yours, but it's just kind of wild to me to think about that
Yeah.
you've gone
Oh
way
yeah.
behind the headlines about West Virginia, the headlines about Arizona. You've been there, you were there. Now, were you there
Yeah.
long enough? No, no one's there long
Yeah.
enough,
Right.
but you saw something.
Yeah, no, I would have to say, I never really looked at the race of people. I looked at the culture because you can have Native Americans, probably they even say that they're more diverse than Europeans, and they're right. You have tribes, different tribes. They have uh, very different ways of practicing their spirituality. Um, Blacks too. I mean, Southern blacks versus urban and Chicago, completely different. You can't. It has nothing to do with race, is what I saw. Um, but yeah, you're right. You're expecting people to think the same. You're expecting, and that's what I mean about labeling. You shouldn't say generalize that. Oh, because you're this person means that's your behavior or that's what you value.
Mhm.
That's not what I saw across the country. I,
Yeah.
I saw where a culture, depending on our environment, and cultures take time to develop. All these new cities that I see popping up, like Omaha, they totally just um, are starting over. They basically tore down downtown. They're redoing the whole thing. It's going to attract a whole new demographic of people from probably across the country. It's going to be a brand new city, and it's going to create a whole new culture. And culture is changing every day. And I don't know what the media is trying to do is change our culture. I'm not sure, but you know um that's, Monica, what I appreciate about the country is to see, like, if you go to North Dakota, you can experience a certain culture from traditional Norwegians, or you can go to Minnesota where you see predominantly Scandinavians, and they have their own traditions. But now you have a population of Somalis coming in for the past two decades. So that's going to change Minneapolis and St. Paul's culture, and people are trying to fight for keeping their traditions. And
Mhm.
I get it. For people who've been there for 200 years, they don't want to see their lives change because a whole new culture is coming in, or ethnic group is coming in, and it's going to change their way of life. I can totally understand it. It's a hard thing to deal with. But I come from the Bay Area of California, where every suburb is completely different. You can have I mean, it's just, from Sunnyvale, California to Oakland, completely different, but they're like 20 miles from each other. So, I appreciated the pockets across the country. I appreciated the long-standing traditions that some of them have, and that's why I did that recent project where I made a piece of every city, because that kind of ties to the history and the industry and the culture of every place. But um, yeah, I don't want to keep rambling, but
Oh
yeah,
no, I was gonna ask you about that because for those watching on video, you can
mhm.
see a couple things in Daniel's room here in his home in
Yeah,
Bend.
I can show you a couple items.
Yeah,
So
what did you
uh,
make?
yeah, Detroit, I made like a model car. So because they're the hub of the automotive industry, at least historically speaking. And
Well,
some people take this so seriously. I made like a cheap plastic one, but some people are spending well over $10,000 on their little model cars,
oh,
and fueled by real gasoline, and like is the real deal. So I got to understand their passion behind it, and the culture that they're trying to pass on to the next generation of that, because Detroit, it was center of the universe in the 60s, right? So and now it's like some people say the laughing, stock, but because they filed for bankruptcy several times as a city, but they're up and coming again, and they're rebounding, and part of it's keeping that tradition alive, as saying, what, we still love our cars, we still want to make our cars, stuff like that. So that's what keeps it. And then when we were talking about Minneapolis, well, I made a butter knife. This is kind of silly. It's a wooden butter knife.
Butter knife.
Yeah, so I hand carved it from a pine tree, taught by a 7-foot Swedish man from Minnesota, and he taught us a group of us, and just kind of the woodwork behind what they do. And so if you go to Minnesota or to Sweden or Finland, they have that as like gifts for people who come and go in their country, is butter knives. So and then I made a very small sweetgrass basket, handmade this in Charleston with a woman from the Gala culture. It's a traditional Western African tradition that settled into the coast of South Carolina. And so I was there in City Market in Charleston, and there's a lot of basket weavers, and of course they're carrying on their tradition, and it's hard.
Wow.
And especially when I went to Amish country in Pennsylvania, it's hard to keep the tradition alive when you see so much modernization and so much of the social media sharing that's getting outside influence, if you know what I mean. So yeah, it's going to be hard to keep on these unique crafts.
Yeah. No, I'm detecting a bit of a theme a little bit in how you're reflecting on what you've seen, which is a little bit of this idea of, you see all these places, all these cultures trying to hang on to something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whether it's like the West African culture, of basket weaving in South Carolina, whether it's Amish, whether it's probably Indian reservations, whether it's Appalachian community fighting for something.
Well, I mean, before you continue, I mean, here, for instance, a cigar in Tampa Bay made this, obviously tobacco leaves. And it's interesting because I didn't know that Tampa had the largest Cuban population. I thought it was Miami.
Larger than Miami? I also thought it was Miami.
Yeah, so they have this whole like I guess quarters called Ybor Square or Village, and you see all these roosters roaming the streets, just like old Cuba would. And I bring this up because that's how Tampa was founded, on the cigar industries and the factories. They brought thousands and thousands of people from Cuba there to make cigars, and it became the world hub of cigar making. And now there's only one factory left, and I had the chance to work out that one to make this. And it's so hard to keep on this tradition and these industries, because things come and go, and politics plays a huge role in it. Obviously the consumer demand plays a role in it, economics, so people don't want to give this up because it took so much to create it. And just like you in Seattle, I mean, this latte art, I didn't know it was actually, well, obviously founded in Italy, but a gentleman that I worked with, he brought it from Italy to Seattle, and
right?
and he popularized it in America. And it's like, why would he ever want to give that up? He's gonna say Seattle is the latte art, hub, and we created this, and yeah. So, but yeah, you gotta, just like I don't know. Yeah, you can just keep going with this.
Oh, totally. No, and it's such a human thing, the fear of loss, in something we've invested in, our culture, our tradition, our sense of identity. Man, this can cause a lot of frustration, a lot of anxiety. It's like you've witnessed it. So, I mean, as first of all, I don't think an hour is enough to try to talk about all the things you've seen and learned, because you've had such a unique experience. but I suppose I'll ask this, coming back to that idea of fear, it sounds like all of this for you started with a bit of fearlessness, right? You're on the side of the road, sleeping in your car,
Well,
like
I mean, I had fear, but I had a purpose stronger than that. You
yeah,
know, I had,
exactly, exactly.
yep, yep.
Right. So so when you take all of this, right, and
Mhm.
you connect it to what's going on in the broader country, the fear and the distrust that people feel, what do you say to that? What do you say to that after everything you've done?
Yeah, I think it's a bunch of baloney what you see. Of course, you can find any angle in a news story. You can skew any statistics to have a certain narrative, and the narrative that I experienced firsthand is that this country is incredible. The people make it, and these hobbies, these pastimes, all created by people and the environment they live in. And I had, like I said, I've put 99%, 99.9% of this country, I've had a great experience. And I think I've seen it enough to have that as a good fact. um, that, you know, these people, like for instance, the Mormons in Salt Lake City, I um, pursued, you know, wanting to sing in the tabernacle choir. And I thought, okay, you have to be Mormon to do that. But you know what? I'll give it a shot. I'll try to use some leverage. But they allowed me to do it. They
Wow.
allowed me to actually sing in the choir, obviously in the rehearsal. But I was with 400 Mormons in this choir. They introduced me, like the conductor introduced me and said that I'm doing this experience so I could understand Americans and our unique practices and what makes this country so incredibly unique and diverse. And, you know, just overall, people are open because they want to share their lives. They appreciate the value that you put on them
Mm,
and the recognition. People really want to be recognized. They want to be appreciated. They want to feel important. And I feel like I did that, and I made people feel that way,
wow.
and people have opened up to me like you won't believe. I've had so many people cry in
Wow.
front of me. Like just recently, I made a Native American pottery in Albuquerque, hand painted the pottery with her, and she actually cried. She says,
Whoa.
you know, God brought you here and blessed me to be able to teach this art because my grandma wanted me to teach this pottery art to people or our community. And here you are making this a reality for me. And she was on the news and everything like that. It was the first time she was like 86 years old. And you know, it's just moments like that. And I had a gentleman that I made like a Hollywood clapperboard, you know, the you know cut, you know that thing, and he cried. This is just these are just recent memories. These are just like in the past week. I was in Albuquerque this week, Los Angeles this week, and this happened. You know, people want to feel like this means something to them. Whatever they're doing means something to them, and they're able to share it through a platform. If I could provide them that. And yeah, that's what I found. Just very emotional, emotionally attached people to their craft, their culture, to what they feel are is valuable to them. And you know, that's what I appreciate America about America. I there's a lot of things that I don't care for, but for me to go there and to learn about it actually puts it in a new perspective, and they
Yeah.
see that. I'll give you one more example. I went to Appalachia again for another project, and um, told these people because quilting is a huge pastime in Appalachia, and um, this group of four ladies, they actually made a quilt before I got there and gave it to me as like a gift, and they spent 2 months on it, and it cost like $600 if you were to sell it. So
Whoa.
they just gave that to me saying, you know what, we come from different backgrounds. You're from California. We're from West Virginia. This is what America is about. Like we care about one each other. We could disagree on a lot of things. I mean, that's it, you know, and wow.
Wow.
You think I'm gonna like label them in a negative way? No, because if they're a Trump supporter or if they're whatever the case may be, I'm like, no, they are people who have values for a reason. Like whatever they were taught growing up, whatever circumstance they've gone through in their life, it all creates what means something to them.
Mhm.
So therefore, I don't believe in like this whole labeling thing. And I do remember when Trump was asked a question on TV at a town hall when he
And
was
by the way,
president.
just in case, yeah, just to bring it out. So you are not a Trump supporter. I just want to name that. Is that right? You're
No,
not.
I mean, I'm indifferent actually. I'm all about policies. I don't care about who the president is. The policies make sense to me.
Okay.
Whether it's caring for the environment, social issues, making sure we're economically dependent.
Yeah, and
All.
you can go back to your story. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't, yeah, that we were kind of bringing up like if you saw that as a difference that someone might be a Trump supporter, does that mean what does that reflect about you? I'm so
Oh
sorry.
yeah, no, I could care less. I can understand why anyone would support a Democratic policy or a Republican. It doesn't matter to me. But I do remember when Trump was asked in a town hall by a black gentleman, you always say America, make America great again. When was America ever great for black people? And I don't know how Trump answered it. I don't really care, but I would have answered it. I would ask the individual
Mm,
because every individual has a different experience. You could be LeBron James and have the best world, best life in the world, or you could be a white person living a hell on earth. It doesn't not matter what race you are. Depends on how you grew up, where you grew up, because that really affects the outcome of your life. So that's the way I think of it.
yeah, yeah. No, and the picture you're painting is 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 a really inspiring way to look at America. That here's all
Ask the
these people.
individual. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ask.
well, but also like here's all these people hoping to be seen and acknowledged, people
Mhm.
who have built meaning in their own lives and in their communities, and
Yep.
someone being curious enough to step into their world without judging, just to step into the world just because is
Mhm.
is such a gift that they may be moved to tears.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
wow, what an interesting kind of counter to, yeah, to the climate that we feel we're in, because I'm not even convinced that we're actually in that climate. I think a
No,
lot of
like I said, media
story that
could
we
spin
tell
any.
ourselves, it's just a story.
Yeah, I mean, media can spin any angle they want. They can cover any. I mean, they can cover anything they want. Like,
Right.
and they, like for instance, Bob Saget. I'm a big fan of Bob Saget. I grew up watching Full House.
Mhm.
I never thought he would get the attention he did when he passed away. He was on everything for several weeks. They can focus on how great of a person he was, or they could just say one and done, one day with Bob Saget, and that's it. No, they kept it going, so they could do whatever they want. Um, uh, they could put a spotlight on anything, or they could put a darkness on anything on anything. So
Wow.
um, I do. And I'm not the only one saying this. Nothing new, but yeah, media has a lot of power in what we are thinking.
Yeah, yeah. And you went to the places people see on TV. You
Yeah.
went. So I want to bring up a particular topic, place of a lot of anxiety and fear that's current for
Hmm.
folks all over the country. And it's the different cultures around COVID.
Hmm.
Here's a place, I have friends, I'm liberal, I have lots of liberal friends who would tell me, I'm not going to go there. Nobody wears masks there.
Yeah.
But then you see the opposite. There's also places where it's like, oh my gosh, like in Seattle, they're all wearing masks. What the heck?
Mhm.
So it's like,
Yeah.
but I have seen that as, in some people's minds, sort of reasons to think that place is not worthy because of this different culture, or it's honestly scary to me. It's scary because I believe this, and if I go there, I'm putting myself in danger. It's a different culture around a global pandemic. No thanks. So we're separating even because of that. So I'd love to get your take. You've
I,
been traveling nonstop at a time when some people have wanted nothing to do with that. What what have you seen in terms of those different cultures? And if you were to run into someone who has a lot of anxiety around that, like,
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
what I'm gonna get. My culture,
yeah. Well, I'll tell you again, media, like they find ways to divide the country. I don't know why. I mean, divide and conquer, I guess. I don't know, but they try to find any angle, racism to the vaccination to now gender, I guess, whatever the case may be. Always finding ways to divide, creating fear. But here's the thing, like, yes, I think being responsible and kind of being using common sense to say, how many people are actually dying from this? How many people are getting sick? What age group? What demographic? Like you have to think about. Um, you have to think. What do you call it? Constructively, I guess. So I put myself in a category where I got COVID actually from my wife at home. So I travel around the country and I end up going home and getting it. So I could get in my own living room. So
yeah.
it doesn't matter if I go out or if I'm staying in. I can and there's people who live in fear who are only doing takeout and they can still get it.
Mhm.
So does that make sense? They're waiting at home,
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
takeout from the delivery person. So you can still get it because obviously easily transmissible. Um, Now, if I were 80 years old and had several, pre-existing conditions, then I'm going to live in fear. Yes, I would say that. If
Mhm.
I'm a 16-year-old kid who's been a healthy athlete, I would not live in fear. So it just depends, and that's what I mean. Just common sense. For me, I got it, so I'm thinking that I'm naturally immune from it. But if I'm not, then I'm taking the risk and saying, you know what, this was my time to go. I don't know. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's obviously not a joke situation, but I think it has been politicized in my opinion because you see different states having different practices. And I feel like when I was in San Francisco and they're asking for the vaccination card when you enter a restaurant, I see people so like giddy saying, "Yeah, I got it. Here I am." Acting like they're a part of a club or like, "Oh, I'm doing the
I do
right
that
thing."
every restaurant I go into Seattle, I just have it ready. Like, yeah, here.
Yeah, it's just
This
like
is how it is
you
here.
just feel like you're a good citizen when you do it. Like I feel like that is. And then if you don't have vaccination and you don't have a card, then people will say you're a bad person, you're irresponsible, you don't care about others. So that's where we are like not respecting each other because I think, in my personal opinion, your body, your choice. If a vaccination worked, then you're protecting yourself, and that's all you should really care about.
Mm.
So, um,
Yeah, but you're traveling a country at a time when a lot of people agree with you, a lot of people would
right,
vehemently disagree with that,
yeah, yeah.
and yet you're witnessing all that. So I'm curious. I mean, I wonder if 10 years down the road you're going to look back and go like, oh my gosh, I did this when I did I did this
Yeah,
when? Like there's a
yeah,
pandemic, there was crazy division, like stuff was real,
yeah.
and like what did you witness any did how much of this of that narrative of division did you witness as you went around? I mean, did you see any clashes? Did you see I don't know. I mean, yeah, tell us that.
Uh,
Like, how that
uh,
was visible, if any?
yeah, I mean, you see two different worlds when you see CNN versus Fox News. I mean, Fox News does look like it's end of the world. Like, crime is you better not go outside your door because there's no police out there to protect you. Homelessness is all over the streets. And then I guess CNN is more like, yeah, nothing ever bad happens out there, besides besides the virus. So it's just like, who do you trust? And I think that's why we're starting to mistrust each other. It's because like media has so much power. Even Malcolm X said this 50 years ago. You know, the most powerful, entity on in this planet is the media. And so what I saw, I mean, we see homelessness in San Francisco, Seattle, Portland. I just came from San Francisco, but I'll tell you, it was a lot. I mean, obviously, it's not good to see homelessness at all, but it made it look a lot worse on television than it was. But yeah, you do see tent cities and places, but yeah, it's a different world than, with my own eyeballs for sure. And
The
yeah,
media versus your own eyeballs. And as a
yeah,
member of the media, I do want to complicate the idea, right?
yeah,
That it doesn't
yes,
out there that the media is doing this, like almost some like evil scheme. But
yeah,
no, like, the media is us and
yeah,
reflects us and kind of has to. And it's a whole mess of implicated stakeholders. But
yeah,
not to
yes.
not to take the blame off media because there's a lot of responsibility, a lot of power there.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can see that they're clearly biased one way or another. I mean, and that's our problem. I would have to say it's not the only problem, but they're exacerbating the problem.
Yeah.
Is that they're biased, and this cancel culture only happens to one person, versus other groups. And yeah, this is not my expertise, but this is just kind of like, my common sense, what I've gone through and what I see. It's
Well, it,
yeah,
it makes me wonder, this is impossible and untenable,
yeah,
but
yeah,
if a lot more of us did, again, not fully what you did, but even a fraction of what you did, just go out of the comfort zone, go to another place, something that looks scary on TV, go and check it out for yourself.
yeah. Well, I wouldn't go to South Chicago though. No, but yeah, I mean, there's some places that are like super bad. Media is honest about them. Like South Chicago is,
Sure.
yeah, but I mean, but still, there's a million people on the south side of Chicago that live there, and no, they're not all dead.
Yeah.
They're not all gang members,
Yeah.
and people actually still live there. So, but if you look on the media, you would actually think that, bullets are flying everywhere, every part of the day. But yes, you can get yourself into a circumstance where, yes, that will happen. But is it rampant and happening every hour of the day? No. But
What would
yeah,
it, how would you be looking at the country if you hadn't done any of this? How would you be
I
looking at
would
the country right now if you
I would
had
stay in my
nothing?
comfort zone. Yeah, I would stay in my comfort zone. I would be like, yeah, I'm not going out there. I would get the virus. I would get killed. I would not get any protection from police if I needed to call them. I would um have a hard time finding a job. I mean, it just looks like it's a very, very scary place out there. But no, there's people still doing their things. They're still, making their crafts, living with passion, living carefree. Yeah, you have I mean, I was at the Miami Dolphins football game. I was the only one wearing a mask because I come from Oregon. I was the only one wearing a mask out of 40,000 people when everyone was probably staring at me,
Oh my gosh.
thinking like, who is this crazy person? So yes, it does become a part of the culture. It's a culture to say, you know what, we're gonna live free or die, right? That's the saying in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So it's just like people are weighing their options, where the risk reward, like, do I want to live free or do I want to live in fear and take that and not take any risks? So I say risk taking is your willingness to make a discovery.
Mm,
So yeah, that's what I see. And
that's awesome. So
yeah, no, I would say most of the country like was open, no mask. Whether you're in Tennessee, I was in a huge festival in Nashville, not a single mask. There was bands playing in the middle of crowds. Austin, Texas, which is a liberal
mhm.
uh, Texas city, or the most liberal Texas city, still no masks. Some people maybe, but you go to Portland, everyone's like
Same in Seattle.
messed up, vaccination card, like
Yeah.
you just have to live on facts, because even if you're vaccinated, we all know you still can get it, maybe not as bad. You can still transmit it, maybe not as much. But you have to live on facts, right? So I
And
think what's the problem, we don't know the facts yet, at least. That's the problem.
yeah.
So
Well, I I got to ask you just what's next? I mean, you had this unstoppable curiosity, it seems like 15 years, 4
Yeah,
trips, lots of lots of encounters, outside your comfort zone, lots of things you didn't expect, tons of
yeah,
surprise. I can't believe everything we covered in this conversation. What is next? Where's your
yeah.
curiosity taking you now?
Well, I want to be like you. I want to just inspire audiences and people to say, what, curiosity is a good thing and to have. I want to inspire curiosity in my own daughter, who's almost 1 years old.
Hey.
I want her to be able to live in the world that I did growing up, where you could do whatever you want. You could feel safe and pursue any avenue you would like. And I'll tell her rejection is going to be a part of the process and don't ever take things personal. I thought I'd bring this up. My dad is from Afghanistan. He never brought up that he felt like a minority. He
Mm.
never brought up that as an excuse of not having an opportunity, but he's been one of the most successful people I know. He has 20 startup companies in the Bay Area in the medical device industry, and he's never once brought up his ethnicity or as an excuse for not making it. And I want to teach my daughter the same, who's going to be a quarter Afghan and 3/4 German and Austrian. So, but yeah, I want to just say, what, do whatever you want. Um, and only you can stop you. So, and I've proven that, that, maybe I got lucky because I'm a nice guy, I'm able to connect with people, but yeah, just be nice out there and, don't feel like you're being judged. And I don't like when parents tell their children like, oh, you're going to be looked at differently because what your makeup is. That's not productive at all in this world. So you should feel like when I moved to Minnesota 3 years ago before I came to Oregon. Sure, I felt like an outsider. I was the only one with black hair because everyone's Scandinavian. But I felt like I just got to find the right people who I can connect with, and then I ended up marrying a Minnesotan. So, yeah, it's a big world out there, and what I learned is that you could pursue anything you want. There's plenty of opportunities, and amazing people to connect with. And what's next for me, I take it step by step. I have to finish writing a book on this recent endeavor called Piecing Together America, and hopefully it shows the greatest sides of this country from city to city, and all the great things that we can explore about it. So
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much.
mhm.
Yeah, well, there you go. If our listeners want to learn more about you, Daniel, what's the website? Where should they go?
Yeah, I got livingthemap.com, and then I'll put my links to my book up there, and like I have a blog up there. But yeah, I just do my thing and try to continue to live with curiosity, and we'll see where that leads next, because until I run out of energy, that I'm gonna continue going. Yeah. So
Seems like it'll be a while before you're.
probably not another
Yeah.
national journey that to this extent, but yeah, I will still love to be out there and share a powerful message.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And for everyone listening and watching, thank you for taking this trek across the country with
Thank
us.
you, Monica. Yeah.
Thank you, Daniel. And
Yeah.
so concludes another edition of the Braver Angels podcast. So don't forget to hit subscribe on the podcast if you haven't already. We've got more good conversations coming your way. We're always glad you're here and always welcome your ideas. So please send ideas on the podcast, guests, anything at all, feedback to media@braverangels.org. So I am your host, Monica Guzman. We had Daniel Seddiqui on today. Thank you, Daniel. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you next time.